Multifamily Matters, a weekly radio show that discusses the current topics and trends in the multifamily industry. Stay tuned and listen to the movers and shakers in multifamily share their opinions and thoughts about what's old, what's new, and where the multifamily industry is heading in the future. You are listening to Multifamily Matters because multifamily matters.
Well, welcome and thank you for tuning into Multifamily Matters, the only broadcast radio show in the nation that's solely dedicated to multifamily industry operations. I'm Paul Marks, your host, coming to you exclusively from the Smart Apartment Data Studio. We have a great show with a wonderful guest who is extremely knowledgeable and right in the middle of today's topic. And today we're discussing the topic, why multifamily operators fail with technology. Now, joining me by phone is a great supplier partner to the multifamily industry, Hussein, the CEO of Balanced Asset Solutions. Welcome, Mo.
Hey, Paul. How you doing? Pleasure to be here.
Good. Listen, this is something that, as far as the topic, is intriguing to me because we've done over the years many shows that have either been dedicated to or have touched on technology that multifamily operators use and the reasons for it. But you know, being able to share some insight into why it might fail, I think would be a great way for people who are adopting that technology to avoid those pitfalls. But I want to start by kind of setting the table, asking you an initial question. But I can tell you that what I found is the multifamily industry as a whole, over the years, over the decades, has been very slow to adopt new things. That when it comes to technologies and different softwares, I know with pricing and revenue management software, it took the hospitality and the travel industry to work all the bugs out before multifamily really took a serious look at it and started adopting it. And then other technologies, I can remember several years ago going to conferences and seeing different technologies that were out there and then asking people who kind of had a demo of it, what do you think about it? And they said, oh, I think it's a great technology, but we're a long way off from needing that, or we may not be able to put that into our into our business plan anytime soon. And then all of a sudden the pandemic comes along. And when the pandemic hits, all of a sudden people were racing to adopt different technologies. So that's kind of what I've seen. I'm interested in knowing what you've seen as well, but I do want to ask you one question because we're talking about, and in some of the information that you provided to me to review, you're discussing the modern renter. And that term, the modern renter, to me, being as my listeners know, a dinosaur and being an old guy, I don't think I would be considered a modern renter because technology is something that is not part of my DNA. I've had to fight it and work with it over the years to get to where I am. So I want to talk a little bit about what the definition of that modern renter is and what do you see it as. But let's talk a little bit about it. Have you seen the same thing with technology and the way it's been adopted in recent years?
Great question, Mark. Paul, excuse me. So I think, as you mentioned earlier, kind of the revenue management example that you used of optimizing pricing and being tested in that market before it came over to the multifamily market was really kind of driving technology adoption and just evolution within any given industry is really the consumer, the customer. And if we take a look at kind of the society that we live in today, we live in the now society, the now economy, if you will. You know, today I can open up an app and I can have my groceries delivered within an hour. I can order something online through a retailer like Amazon and have those products delivered within 48 hours. So we see this dynamic shift that's happening now on what consumer demands and wants are, and people are more and more intimately connected with technology. You know, the generation of renter, the new generation of renters that we're having coming into the market today we're born in a time where, iPhones existed and smartphones existed. Most of them haven't even seen a fax machine or don't even know what the dial tone is from dial-up internet. And conversely, multifamily operators need to understand this dynamic and this shift that they're seeing within the market. As with any business and any industry, change is inevitable. And my dad used to always say, complacency is the parasite of ambition. And so, then the pandemic, it was a great kind of litmus test that tested a lot of these multifamily operators and their ability to be able to adopt technology. Modern employees also expect to have the tools that they need to be able to be successful. If for the operators that didn't have the ability to communicate and engage with their tenants digitally, they struggled to be able to run their business during a period of time when we all had to work remotely. And also their staff, if they had to be in the office in order to be able to do their job, they also struggled in being able to do their work if they didn't have the tools necessary to be able to use cloud-based software. Now, a great example is, we had a client that had reached out to us during the pandemic period, and they had a vacancy rate of about 26%, which is very high. Looking at their website, they didn't have the ability for tenants to be able to apply, or prospective tenants to be able to apply online and execute a lease online. They had a PDF document where you'd have to download it, fill it out, and then send it via email or even fax. And all this friction makes it very difficult for them to engage with a modern renter. Again, technology has kind of shifted and shaped the way that we both experience the world and how we actually communicate with each other and are able to do business. And so, with that, the pandemic was definitely a huge kind of litmus test and kind of helped kind of accelerate, especially within the multifamily industry and a whole host of other industries, and the adoption of that technology.
Yeah, I love that term friction. I mean, basically, the way I'd interpret that term and the way you used it is anything that is not allowing someone to immediately do something. And we are in the age of people wanting things right now, right away. Is that right?
That's right. You are totally right there, Paul. And especially in extremely competitive businesses like the retail businesses, this is what's made a giant like Amazon so very successful, is that they have this notion of customer obsession, and that notion is predicated on the basis of ensuring that creating as much little friction, getting rid of as much manual work, and streamlining the way that their customers are able to engage with their business and getting them the services and the products that they need as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and that's really kind of what technology. One of the things that the technologies that are available now can do. We've got about 3 minutes left in this segment. I want to ask you, tell us a little bit about some of the ways that you've seen organizations have adapted and shifted to this technology.
Yeah, great question. I think what the reason that a lot of companies kind of look at different pieces of technology. The other thing is that because of the advent of the internet and how easy it is to build services today, there's a lot of noise in the market. There's so many different options, different products that are available, and that's why when you talk to a lot of operators, they may see something and see it as kind of a quote unquote shiny object, and maybe they're not as motivated to implement or leverage that piece of technology. And so I think really, anchoring on kind of, on the main question of how can we serve our customers better, and how can we take care of our employees internally better for them to be able to do more with less red tape, less friction. And that's really what kind of drives the adoption for technology. We're all creatures of habit. We don't like change, regardless of what your age is. But I think definitely, the modern renter and some of us that are on the younger side and after the older generation are a lot more opt and open to be able to adopt these, this change. And so a lot of organizations really kind of, usually where they will kind of start is, okay, hey, especially during the pandemic, sending checks into the office and having to manually take those checks to the actual bank, which required social distancing and whatnot, added a ton of friction. And so we saw during the pandemic a lot of customers adopting the ability for tenants to be able to pay online. And then you have, also because of the pandemic and us having to be socially distant, we have to have the ability to be able to lease online. And so virtual tours was also something that really caught fire during the pandemic, and now it's starting to become all a norm. And the one also interesting reoccurring theme that we saw coming out of as we're coming out of this pandemic is, a lot of the technologies and the things that were adopted by these real estate companies and operators. These are changes for the better, and they will stay. The pandemic, if anything, just helps kind of accelerate that adoption.
Yeah, and that's what we've had countless guests who have echoed that same sentiment, that whatever benefits they learned through technology for the pandemic did accelerate them in adopting them, and they're gonna keep them in place. But we're gonna break it here and be back right after these messages. You're listening to Multifamily Matters because multifamily matters.
SMART is a national multifamily research and analytics company providing market, property, and floor plan level data to track performance, evaluate competitive strategies, and identify potential investment opportunities. Their innovative web-based software and mobile application contains extensive searchable inventory of granular historical data, floor plan by floor plan rents, concessions, and availabilities for enhanced analysis and forecasting. For more information or to sign up for a free trial, go to smartapartmentdata.com.
Do you have multiple multifamily properties in your portfolio? Take control of your unpredictable IT spending with our managed IT services. Whether you have 5 or 500 properties, CTS has you covered with 24/7 nationwide remote and on-site support. Our pricing allows you to budget IT costs year after year with a predictable flat monthly rate. CTS provides the expertise, management, support, and tech infrastructure for all your properties. Call 888-255-9715 or visit ctsglobaltech.com for a free quote.
Well, we are back, and you are listening to Multifamily Matters, coming to you exclusively from the Smart Apartment Data Studio. And we're discussing the topic of why multifamily operators fail with technology. I'm Paul Marks. Joining me by phone is a wonderful supplier partner to the multifamily industry, Mo Hussein, the CEO of Balanced Asset Solutions. I do want to remind our listeners, if you would like to provide show topics, guest ideas, suggestions, or just listen to any archived episode of Multifamily Matters, please go to our website at multifamilyradio.com. So, Mo, we talked a lot in the beginning about kind of how we got to where we are with the recent adoption of new technologies. And we talked a little about defining what the modern renter is, the term modern renter. Let's talk about the modern renter's experience of being a resident in a multifamily community. How does a modern renter expect to engage with their landlord these days?
Yeah, great question. So, when we were talking earlier, we mentioned kind of the shift that we're seeing now and being the kind of in the now economy. One of the biggest advantages of technology is being able to have a level of transparency in communication. And so, and I'll give you an example. When if you ever use like an app like an Uber or Lyft, what made these applications so extremely powerful is, I can order a cab through Uber or Lyft, and I can see in real time exactly where that person is, when they're going to come pick me up, and exactly when I'm going to get to my destination. And the modern renter today expects to have, a similar level of transparency when they're communicating with their landlord. If they have a maintenance request or an issue associated with their unit, they want to be able to submit a maintenance request digitally and have the confidence that the property manager or the operator is going to be able to get to that as quickly as possible. They want to be able to feel heard. They want to feel heard, And they want to also have a level of transparency and confirmation that, yes, it was received on the other end and that the status is changing to being assigned and that there's going to be a time scheduled for that to be addressed. We see, one of our clients had approached us, and today they're doing a lot of manual pen and paper. When a tenant has an issue with their unit, they call in the office. The secretary or whoever answers the phone writes down that request on a piece of paper. Then it gets given to the actual maintenance supervisor. Then it gets assigned. They go check out the unit, and then they may need to leave the unit and go pick up whatever supplies. Conversely, if they were to have the ability to be able to submit that digitally, they can also ask for pictures or videos or what have you. It could be something like, the toilet's broken or what have you. And what the advantage that the operator would get with that is the maintenance supervisor or the maintenance support tech would be able to go into the unit in order to be fully prepared with all the materials that they would potentially need in order to be able to address whatever issue is occurring and not have to go back and come back with those items. And so, a lot of folks that are still doing, kind of maintenance requests very manually in this kind of pen and paper fashion, their hesitation, what we've seen, is usually, hey, we have, a lot of maintenance requests that come in and we feel that, tenants are going to abuse this if they were to have the ability to be able to submit it digitally. But, in our experience, what we've seen is actually the exact opposite. If the tenant is able to confirm that the request was received by the actual property manager and they can see in real time that they are working on it, that the status has changed, that it's been assigned, there's no need for them to continuously call the office and ask about an update or ask, hey, I submitted a request. Nobody has come by or said anything yet. So that level of transparency reduces a ton of friction there. And so, on average, we've seen that clients seeing a reduction or experience a reduction of over 20% in inbound calls coming from their tenants, specifically around the status of their maintenance request, because now they're able to see kind of that information in real time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that you mentioned, which I would imagine has got to be a tremendous help when you're talking about processing a work order, is being able to submit photos or video of what the issue is. I mean, that is something that the modern renter, the term we're using is modern renter, is totally comfortable with using their smartphone to shoot short videos or I mean, they do it every day in their social life, I'm sure. And that has got to be a tremendous assistance to the maintenance team to be able to see before they ever go in the unit what the issue is, so they can be more prepared when they go.
Exactly, a more efficient use of time, and that's just one example, right? Another example is, we talked about earlier during the pandemic, that the notion of virtual tours, right? So I could be living in New York, looking to move to Houston, and before I move, I want to take a look at potential communities that I want to move into. The property managers of the property websites that have the option for a virtual tour, where I can, essentially kind of place myself within that unit, virtually, and take a look at the actual layout, make an assessment if this is a fit for me. That is a huge advantageous point, right? It also broadens the amount of folks that I can actually advertise that listing for. I don't have to specifically just focus on the folks that are within that region. So, these are this is very impactful, especially when it comes to unit turnover and vacancies and whatnot. The organizations that already had virtual tour capabilities did not have as difficult of a time filling their vacancies than the ones that did not during this pandemic period.
And another thing that comes to mind is there are companies now, obviously, that in multifamily that help to work with multifamily operators to protect their reputation, protect their brand, by doing reputation management. So much is in the world of technology and the internet now. People are leaving online reviews. So how does technology impact the reputation of a multifamily operator, and how can it be a good thing or potentially a bad thing?
Great question. So, I would say that, 85% of reviews are left by two groups of people. Folks that had a great experience, a great phenomenal experience with whoever that vendor or business is. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, folks that did not have a pleasant experience. And so earlier we were talking about decreasing the amount of friction that it takes to be able to communicate and do business with a prospective tenant. And so having the ability for somebody like example that's in New York that never even viewed a unit and even stepped foot in the state of Texas, being able to lease tour, lease, and go through that entire execution process without having to actually be here is extremely advantageous. It simplifies things for them, and they have the confidence at the moment that they arrive in that city that there's already a unit available for them. And experiences like that, will provide a positive renter's experience and will increase the inclination for them to leave a positive review. Now, on the flip side, if they don't have a good experience, if, for example, a tenant is not getting communication from their property manager in a timely manner about a maintenance request that they feel is very important to them, they may leave a very scathing review. And so, we live in an economy now in a society where, we have Twitter and we have the ability to be able to put real-time reviews of whatever we're feeling and whatever experience that we have with whatever vendor or business. And so it's absolutely important to make sure that, we're promoting these positive experiences. And these positive experiences, also cater towards, the best type of business, which is referral business. If I'm working with a vendor or if I'm living in a community where I absolutely love being here and I'm having a great experience, I'm that much more inclined to tell anybody within my network that's looking to move within the area that, hey, I live in this community. You should check this place out as well. And if that person is a good tenant, they probably know other folks within their network that would also be good tenants, and so that also becomes kind of a self-fulfilling, a catapult for additional great tenants and prospective renters that are funneling into the community.
Yeah, we've got about a minute and a half left, but I just wanted to, say that, and again, I've talked about this before on other episodes. I remember a time when if you wanted to find an apartment, you would go to the grocery store or someplace that had the magazines that the publications that would tell you what apartments are available in your area.
Right.
There was no internet available at that time, and that's how you found an apartment. But today, with the internet and these reviews that are available, people may eliminate your property as a potential place to lease before without ever stepping foot on it because of the reviews they see. Got about 30 seconds left. What do you think?
Exactly. It's the same thing as when I'm looking at if I'm in a city looking at a potential new restaurant that I want to check out. The first thing I'm going to look on Yelp or whatever platform I'm looking for that new restaurant is firstly you'll take a look at the reviews. If the reviews are extremely positive, I'm that much more inclined to engage with that vendor or that business than one with not so high reviews.
All right. Well, we're going to break it here. We are going to be back right after these messages. You're listening to Multifamily Matters because multifamily matters.
Rev, the multifamily leasing company, is the industry's long-term affordable leasing management solution. After all, it's really not about cost. It's really all about revenues. Book Rev's expert directors and leasing career professionals for your properties today. Let Rev drive revenues and create significant incremental value for you. Reduce stress, stabilize and maximize leasing performance. Never expend resources to recruit or train for leasing again. Lease up, value add, conventional leasing. Let Rev be your long-term leasing solution. Go to RevLMC.com to find out more. That's RevLMC.com. Rev is revolutionizing multifamily leasing. Hire Rev today. In a world where keeping up with an ever-evolving technology landscape continues to be a challenge, Allegion helps property managers cut through the noise to supply their residents with the amenity most critical to the digital generation: mobile access control. Ideal for the multifamily market, Allegion has designed mobile-enabled solutions that streamlines access while providing the security and benefits for developers, property managers, and residents alike. To learn more about Allegion's access control product offerings, please visit usallegion.com/MFM.
SMART is a national multifamily research and analytics company providing market, property, and floor plan level data to track performance, evaluate competitive strategies, and identify potential investment opportunities. Their innovative web-based software and mobile application contains extensive searchable inventory of granular historical data, floor plan by floor plan rents, concessions, and availabilities for enhanced analysis and forecasting. For more information or to sign up for a free trial, go to smartapartmentdata.com.
Well, we are back, and you are listening to Multifamily Matters, coming to you exclusively from the Smart Apartment Data Studio. And we're discussing the topic of why multifamily operators fail with technology. I'm Paul Marks. Joining by phone is a fantastic supplier partner to the multifamily industry, Mo Hussein, the CEO of Balanced Asset Solutions. I do want to take a moment and thank our exclusive sponsors that make Multifamily Matters possible. eConserve, providing multifamily water conservation solutions for properties across the U.S. Rev, the leasing management company. Rev is revolutionizing multifamily leasing. Control by Net, providing multifamily video surveillance and remote guarding, solving your security issues. Allegion, a leading provider of mobile-enabled products and solutions for efficient access control within multifamily properties. Balanced Asset Solutions. Don't delay, call Balanced Asset Solutions today. Smart Apartment Data, the most comprehensive and up-to-date intelligence on the multifamily industry, and CTS, Complete Technology Solutions, making managed IT an easy business decision for multifamily. So, Mo, we need to talk a little bit, I think, about the challenges that technology adoption poses for multifamily operators. So where do multifamily operators have the biggest challenge in technology adoption and even implementation?
Great question. So I would say there's three key things that are needed to make any rollout of technology or implementation successful. So number one is executive sponsorship. So this needs to be a mandate and objective that comes from the top down. It's very important that the executive management team is very involved in the evaluation of the software. They're also involved in the actual process of that rollout. And the reason that this is important is because it also helps set the tone on the importance and significance of this piece of technology that is looking to hopefully positively impact both the renters as well as the actual internal staff. And without that, it's very difficult for the organization to successfully adopt this piece of technology. We have a lot of clients that will reach out to us, and they bought a robust package solution of products from a software provider like a Yardi, and they try to self-implement, or they were working directly with a technology vendor, and they're still at a point of frustration where things kind of aren't working out, and a lot of that has to deal with maybe the executive not made this as much of a priority within the organization. And so, there hasn't been enough of a staff motivation to actually get this and see this through. The second thing is extreme ownership. With any piece of technology is just a tool, and how you use that tool is going to dictate the returns and the value you get out of that tool, right? And so it's very important that, when you're rolling something out, like let's say a new AP system or a new lease management system, that you have a level of ownership that's understood by your staff, and your staff should feel empowered and enabled to be able to properly implement and have the tools, support, whether it be monetarily or otherwise, to be able to properly get this rolled out. And without having a level of ownership and giving the staff that level of ownership and leadership, it's very difficult for something to be properly kind of rolled out. And thirdly is and what's usually kind of overlooked is kind of the change management and project management aspect of rolling out any new piece of technology. I mentioned earlier, we're all creatures of habit, and change is very difficult to adopt. Moving from the way you were doing things before to the way you would like to do things after is a huge gap. And in order to be able to support that gap, you need to have the right project planning, contingencies, as well as, backups in case if something fails. So, and having a very, planning for that, planning that entire process, how that cutover period will work, understanding and assessing the potential downstream impact if things were to go sideways, and to have plans around how you'd be able to mitigate that is what will ensure that this project will be successful. And so, and again, kind of summarize there, those three things I mentioned were executive sponsorship, extreme ownership, and change management. One thing that we also suggest to a lot of our clients is also incentivizing your staff internally when it comes to extreme ownership. If you task, let's say, your leasing manager with owning the rollout of an online leasing platform, is to give, milestones and some type of incentivization, whether it be monetarily or otherwise, as they're kind of going through that process. Another point that I want to also harp on is, you want to make sure that everybody's kind of bought in to the actual change. And people are bought in to doing things differently when they are bought into the why. And so it's very important that your staff understand why you're doing this change, why you're going in this direction, and what the potential implications are and how it would make their lives easier and better and more streamlined. And that will ease the transition, especially during points of contention where maybe things are not working out correctly or you're falling behind on deadlines.
Mo, do you find that some multifamily operators, when they're considering technology, that they try to get that buy-in prior to bringing the technology on board when it's in the decision-making process for if this, in other words, is this the technology that we think is best for our company? Do they try and get people downstream who will be using it to be part of that review and decision-making process to get that buy-in initially?
Yeah, good question. I would say it's kind of a mixed bag. Usually if we do, some of the larger operators, maybe the leadership within that particular business unit, let's say, for example, if it's the accounting folks, maybe the controller will be involved in the actual decision-making of the new accounting system that they want to implement. But, they kind of lose sight of the folks that are actually entering individual transactions, the folks that are actually kind of in the weeds and actually in the system day in and day out versus just looking at the end results, which are usually just the reports. And so it's very important that they're involved, throughout that evaluation cycle. They have their own challenges and things that are, that are creating a bottleneck or a blockade for them to be able to do their work effectively. And so by having them involved in the evaluation process, they will feel more bought in and also heard, that the business is trying to make things easier for them, and it'll make that transition easier. But I would say, like I mentioned, usually usually leadership is only involved. And, also what we see is, in a lot of scenarios, the executive management team is only involved when, the negotiations are happening and kind of before a contract will be executed. But I think it's very important for them to be involved throughout that evaluation cycle. And this ensures that all parties are kind of bought in and are all incentivized to be able to see this through.
We've got about 3 minutes left in this segment. I want to ask, because you mentioned early on in the segment that, that a lot of times there's frustration from, trying to implement these technologies. One thing that I'm curious about is, do you find that there are instances where people have bought into a technology, as far as operators bought into technology, brought it on board, started to try to put it in place, and realized that it's not doing what they thought it would do? Doesn't mean it won't do it, just means that they haven't been able to get it to do that. And that there's frustration and disappointment there. And if so, what can they do?
Yeah, good question. So, the other great thing about implementing a new piece of technology that it also gives an opportunity for a level of introspection into your own internal processes and how you actually operate. And so, a lot of times, folks will assume that, hey, we're going to get this new piece of technology, and we want to essentially keep our business processes the same as they were before. And just leverage technology to do it faster. But there may be a better way of doing things. A great example is, we have a client that has over 6,500 units, and the owner signs every check that goes out the door. And so there's a bottleneck there when they're ready to pay out their vendors because, if the owner is not in the office or what have you, that vendor is going to have to wait to be paid, and those checks are going to be sitting on his desk. There's technology out there where, the moment that the invoice gets coded through a mobile app, you can easily just approve the invoice, and then the system can automatically send an ACH or wire transfer directly to that particular vendor or the owner or what have you. And so implementing or rolling out any new piece of technology is an opportunity also to reevaluate your own internal processes, and there may be a better way to do something, a more streamlined and a quicker way to get to the same end result. So that's also something that operators, and especially the executive management team, need to understand and be malleable to, rather than kind of being rigid and going against the grain, if you will. And then secondarily is enablement and process management and documentation. So as you're reinventing your own internal processes, it's also important to document, via standard operating procedures on how things are changing and kind of standardizing on what that would look like.
Okay. Well, we're going to break it here. We are going to be back right after these messages with our final segment of this episode of Multifamily Matters. You're listening to Multifamily Matters because multifamily matters.
Looking for a solution to balance your assets? Tired of wasted time managing your day-to-day bookkeeping, buggy software implementations, inaccurate financials? Or maybe you're worried about a pending audit. Would you like more time to focus on revenue-generating activities versus accounting administrative activities? Here at Balanced Asset Solutions, we are a CPA firm that specializes in property management platforms, including Yardi and Appfolio. You can reach Balanced Asset Solutions now at 619-415-6826. Go visit our website at www.balancedasset.solutions.com. Don't delay. Call Balanced Asset Solutions today.
Your multifamily property's water and sewer rates are skyrocketing every year. The only way to lessen the impact is to reduce water consumption through water conservation. eConserve has pioneered a no-cost, no-risk water conservation program, and it doesn't cost you a penny. A property in Houston is saving over $196,000 a year with this no-cost program. Call eConserve today at 713-662-3220. for a free analysis of your property. That's eConserve at 713-662-3220.
Control by Net provides communities with video surveillance solutions accessible 24/7 from any web browser or mobile device. Our remote guarding reduces crime in garages and mailrooms. Many top owners and managers already utilize our services and love the single sign-on feature to see all properties. As NAA and NMHC members, Control by Net only serves multifamily. Our cloud and managed video solution is consistently voted easiest to use. We meet any compliance requirements. Visit us at www.controlbynet.com or email us for a free site survey at crproperty@controlbynet.com.
We are back with our final segment of this episode of Multifamily Matters, coming to you exclusively from the Smart Apartment Data Studio, and we're discussing the topic of why multifamily operators fail with technology. I'm Paul Marks, and joining me by phone is a super supplier partner to the multifamily industry, Mo Hussein, the CEO of Balanced Asset Solutions. Mo, we talked in the first three segments about where we've been as an industry with technology and the modern renter and how they are expecting instant responses and to have transparency into how things are going when they have a maintenance request, and some of the things that operators need to look out for when they adopt technology. But there is an investment in technology. So let's talk a little bit about how is technology an investment for the multifamily operators, and how should they look at it? What do you think?
Phenomenal question. As with any change in either business process, and with the technology, it will definitely change the way a business kind of operates. And with that comes with either time and monetary investment. And so, traditionally, the way software was procured in the past was, you'd get some disk in the mail and you'd upload it to some hard drive on a server. And with that came the cost of the maintenance associated with that server, security patches. Now we're in a time where, cybersecurity is very, very important. Rolling out updates associated with that server, having to buy new hardware, having to hire an IT management company to manage all those servers. Now we've moved to web-based technology, right? And it's important to understand that, web-based technology, cloud technology, it's not some fictitious server that's sitting in, literally in the clouds. It's literally just on somebody else's computer. And there are businesses out there that just focus on data center operations. So when a lot of clients are looking at technology, you don't want to look at it from the perspective of it being a cost center, but what you want to do is really assess kind of the total cost of ownership. When I say the total cost of ownership, modern SaaS technology, software as a service, web-based technology, you're paying some subscription fee, some licensing fee that's reoccurring, whether it be on a monthly or an annual basis. This is much more different than the previous model where you owned the piece of technology and software and you just paid for support fees. However, in the previous model, there were all these other costs that came with maintaining and managing that, including the actual hardware products, the IT management overhead, dealing with things like updates. With web-based technology, all the updates happen seamlessly in real time overnight across all customers that are using that piece of technology. And so it's important to understand what that actual total cost would be for either or situation. And then additionally, it's important to also understand the return on that investment that you'll get. You're paying as some type of subscription, a perpetual expense, if you will. And with that comes, the scalability that comes with that piece of technology. And so, streamlining the leasing process in one large apartment community, as you onboard more and more multifamily communities, the benefit that you get with that kind of compounds and increases over time. And so you have that level of scalability in terms of, being able to operate. And then additionally, technology comes with a whole host of automation. And with that comes the benefit of not needing to scale headcount and your staff linearly in the same fashion that you are also growing the business. Some of the best operators are able to have, a very small team, of like 3 or 4 people that can manage up to, 5,000 units because they're leveraging technology and automating and streamlining their processes. And so, we had a customer that was looking to, get off of their on-premise solution and move to a web-based product. and they were looking at the licensing fees that they got from the vendor and their proposal. It was a couple $100,000. And they were comparing that to the cost associated with their current software solution, which was an on-premise system that they're only spending about $30,000 a year. So we're talking about a magnitude of 10x. However, what we had implored them to do when we dug a little bit deeper is we realized they're spending over $80,000 a year to have a third-party IT management company that's managing the servers associated with hosting the application. Additionally, because of this old piece of technology that hasn't been, where further development hasn't been invested in, there were a lot of things that they were still kind of doing manually, and this new piece of technology was going to save them close to 1,000 hours in just staff time a month in manual processes and paperwork that they would be able to now invest into actually growing their business and actually catering towards their customers, their tenants, as well as the owners. And so that's extremely, extremely important. Secondarily, we have, employee morale and growth. Everybody wants to feel like they're at a place where they can grow and they have career opportunities, especially some of the younger folks that are entering the industry. And being exposed to these different pieces of technology will help them become better and better operators and have a better understanding of how to marry technology with the multifamily business. And then thirdly is brand reputation. Technology will enable you to have a level of transparency and immediacy in the way you communicate and engage with both your tenants and your owners. And all of these things are things to kind of consider and to keep in mind when you're thinking about investing in technology.
We've got about a little over 2 minutes left before I want to transition to something. But I wanted to ask you, because I know this is an important part of the offerings that you have for your clients, is how does this kind of technology help to drive the confidence in the reporting and the financials that every property has to do?
Right. That's actually a very, very important point, Paul. So, some of the newer technologies that are available have very robust capabilities in terms of access control and process control. And so if we can implement these things correctly, we can ensure, for example, that a move out is properly processed and that the tenant gets their refund within that 21-day period before, we would be subjected to fines and whatnot. It also allows for things like bank reconciliations to be done correctly, where they tie out to the actual property cash balance. And these are all things that are important, and also all the input that you're putting into these systems all culminate into the final reports that get sent out to either management or either get sent out to the actual owners. And so in defining those processes and aligning your business around those processes, it's going to enable you to have that kind of level of confidence and not having to, have kind of egg in your face, if you will, and have to redo financials or change or edit them after they've already been done, because there's so many different checkpoints within that process of how the product is being used.
So before I transition, I want to ask you, what is your number one tip to our listeners as far as how not to fail when you're bringing on new technologies? What would you say is your number one tip?
Good questions. I would say, number one, embrace the change and be open-minded. Be open-minded and, changing your own internal processes if it means it's going to be work to your benefit, and be able to streamline the way that you're able to do your business. And also, be open-minded in the manner that, this is technology. There's always things that can come up in terms of, functionality or features of things that aren't working. But having that patience and that open mind and driving to the finish line is very, very important.
All right. Well, it's a great topic. A lot of good information there to digest for our listeners about technology. Is something that is not going to go away. But I do want to transition, and I want to ask you a little bit about, to tell our listeners about yourself, how you got in the industry. Tell us about Balanced Asset Solutions, and if someone needs to reach out to you to ask more questions, how can they do that?
Yeah, definitely. So my name is Mohammed Hussein. I run a CPA and technology consulting practice that specifically focuses on the real estate market. We offer kind of a range of services from, technology implementations, advisory for change management, Department of Real Estate compliance, whether it be an external audit or representing a client during an audit. We also offer web development, marketing, and SEO services. Collectively, we have close to about 80 years of multifamily operator experience and over 100 years of trust accounting experience. And so we're kind of a hodgepodge of folks that have both like technology expertise as well as, the accounting and operations experience as well. Myself, I actually, we started this practice about 5 years ago. We have about, 22 our clients in 22 different states and across 3 different countries. My personal background, I actually came from working for some of these vendors. I, started off my software experience working in the working for Appfolio well before they were public, and then I was working at Yardi, working with some of the largest multifamily operators in the U.S. And so if there's any project that you're either working on or need help with an implementation, whether it be custom reporting, we also do kind of outsourced bookkeeping and accounting services. You can reach us at www.balancedasset.solutions.com, or you can reach me personally at mo@balancedasset.solutions.com or 619-415-6826.
Yeah, and Mo, let me ask you this: as far as what you would consider the sweet spot of the size of a company that would benefit from your expertise and everything you're doing out there in the multifamily industry, what type of company would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, on average, our clients have about 5,800 units, but we have clients as large as 30,000 doors and as small as 100 doors. So we work with kind of the entire gambit. We've kind of positioned ourselves as being kind of a one-stop shop and being able to not only help on the accounting side, the operations side, whether it be taxes, even web development. And so, our value prop to the industry is, we have that deep operations experience as well as the actual know-how and all these different pieces of technology. You kind of need the two in order to be able to maximize the value that you're getting out of your subscription, and that's something that we can deliver on.
Yeah, that's great. And I've had the opportunity to sit and chat with you at both the NMHC OpTech conference last year as well as Apartmentalize this year. So I know you see a lot of value in those organizations that support our industry. Of course,
as well as yourself. For sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. We're going to end it here, but again, reach out to Mo if you have a need. If you're looking at technology, I'm sure they can help you to make that as easy of a transition as possible. But we're going to be back next week with another great topic and power panel of industry experts. You've been listening to Multifamily Matters because multifamily matters.
Thank you for listening to Multifamily Matters, a weekly radio show that discusses current topics and trends in the multifamily industry. To find out more about the show or make suggestions for topics or interesting guests, go to multifamilyradio.com. You have been listening to Multifamily Matters because multifamily matters.